If you're gonna put this in someone else's face, on someone else's mouth, it'd be rude not to paint them.
It's a meat event, and real quick, shout out to our latest subs, Jason Alrondi and Wyatt Floyd. Appreciate you grilling, chilling with the boys, and hell of a meat event in this one. The 185 championship belt is on the line. Israel Adesanya, 21-1, coming in against Robert the Reaper Whittaker, 23-5, and this is a rematch of the fight that we saw at UFC 243. Seems like a lifetime ago, pre-COVID, and it was not a close fight, right? It was. Chael Sonnen always says it's the only fight he's ever seen a guy win twice, and it's kind of a good point because Izzy did sort of knock him out at the end of the first round, and then he definitely knocked him out at the beginning of the second. And it was a fight that, since happening, we've heard the Reaper say, the nerves got the better of him. He was fighting a little bit too emotional, too angry, and that sort of attack was just not going to work against a very calculated and precise striker like Adesanya. And it's been interesting to watch the development of Robert Whittaker since that fight, because ever since then, he's been getting takedown after takedown, really mixing it up quite well. And I just look back to that most recent contest against Kelvin Gastelum, who is a legit wrestler himself, D1 at Arizona State. And Robert managed to just take him down at ease, keep him there, do what he wanted to do with him. And it's just been fascinating to see how he has evolved since that lone loss to Adesanya. So, do you think that he's evolved enough? Is there any way that he can implement what Jan Blachowicz did to Adesanya in what earned Adesanya his lone professional loss? And is that a pathway for Whitaker, or is Adesanya going to do the same thing to him this time that he did last time? What do you think?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's very, very, very tough to ever go against Adesanya. And I mean, heck, it's even tough to go against Bobby Knuckles. I mean, look at this three-fight tear he's been on. Um, Man, it's so tough to say. I do like that Whitaker is a plus 220 underdog. That is a beautiful thing if you're a Robert Whitaker fan. But man, he really has to be so dialed and pray for that Izzy has a bad night, because when Izzy is locked and loaded, he seems darn near invincible. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, who besides Calvin Gastelum, which I think that was maybe a timing issue or just a bizarre like fighting style for him, um, or maybe it was just the peak of Calvin Gastelum. You never know. And there was a bad night for Izzy. You just really don't see Izzy ever have trouble. We're like, oh, maybe, oh, it's just like, well, that's cool kung fu and dominant performance. Once again, there's the KO, easy work. And the first fight was pretty easy for Israel. Um, and I think Robert has been just really think of that in the back of his head and dialing this in. Like, this is what he's been training for. It was his fight back after that crazy surgery. So that's kind of my excuse for him. I think Robert is a new man. I think he's on a whole other level. And I think Izzy's kind of been just staying here, like at the top. And Robert has slowly been going up. Just after he recovered and got this three fight, I think Robert's actually going to win. I'm going to go with this underdog. I like it. Shouldn't ride with me. It's very bad to go against Adesanya from if you look at his record clearly, but I just like Robert in this. I like the odds. I think he's got a good game plan, a good strategy, and Israel I don't think is going to be ready for the new Robert. I think he just made it so easy and he's playing it off like, oh, I'm gonna knock him out first round and stuff, and this is gonna be easy work. Robert has not been easy work for his last three opponents, and those guys understood a true champion level fighter. And I think this is truly the best of the best. This is gonna be a Colby versus Usman, but I think it's gonna be a stand-up brawl and some crazy, crazy high-level war. And I don't think anyone's getting finished. I think it's going to the decision, and I think Robert's gonna get it.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff there. And, if this looked anything like Colby versus Usman, then we'd definitely be in for a sweet evening. And I'm with you as well. I think that this one is going to go the distance. I think it's going to maybe take a couple rounds to develop. And ultimately, I am going to go with Adesanya in this one. 72% is rolling with the last style bender as well. 28% rolling with the Reaper. But you mentioned the odds a little bit, and they make sense, right? I mean, given how that last contest went, but man, if you're bullish on Robert Whittaker and you're getting him at a plus 200, plus 220 spot, that's some juicy beef for the Reaper for sure. Because you're unlikely to ever see Robert Whittaker as an over 2-1 dog unless it's against the last stylebender. So the last time we saw Izzy was against Marvin Vettori. You and I were there live, and he managed to just outclass Marvin across 5 rounds. And Marvin wasn't able to get those takedowns going, which was, sort of the question leading into that contest, given how Jan Blachowicz was able to take Izzy down at ease. You mentioned that you think this fight is going to stay standing, but is it going to be advantageous for the Reaper to try and get this thing to the mat? And if he does, is he going to be able to keep Adesanya pinned like Blachowicz was able to do? Or is it going to be closer to what Marvin did, where maybe he gets him down, but then Izzy springs right up? How do you see the takedown affair going in this one?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and it's funny. People in Izzy, he always says, oh, skinny boy, I'm a skinny boy, blah blah. Izzy's bigger than anyone in that division. That guy is a monster, and when you see him face off with these other guys, you then really see, oh wow, he's really not that small. Like maybe he's not as thick as Marvin Vittori or as Yoel Romero and stuff, but he's darn near like frame wise built like totally different. He's taller, he's bigger, he's thicker on the bone side, but he's just got smaller like I guess muscles, but they're still, I mean, he's still very strong. And uh man, I think it's gonna be really tough for Robert to manhandle him on the ground. I think Izzy's just too big of a guy. But if he's able to get that done, I think if Robert can uh, move in some calf kicks, because Israel, what he's been doing to all of his opponents is he beats the crap out of their legs. They can't really explode as much. They can't really move as much, and then he just does whatever he wants. Because if you can barely move with your feet, then and the other guy's feet are perfect. You can just dance around him and just hit him whenever you want. So that's what Adesanya's game plan has been this whole time after every fight. So I think Robert is going to understand that and try to counter his calf kicks with calf kicks and then go for a takedown. When you're weak on the legs, you're not moving as fast, and the takedown shall show. But I don't see Robert really going for a takedown unless it shows available for him.
Yeah, very curious to see how this one plays out for sure. And to your earlier point, you mentioned it going the distance. I kind of think this is going to be a back and forth contest. Maybe Adesanya, outpoints Robert in the first round. Reaper responds with some heat in the second. And I think that they're going to actually trade rounds until that fateful fifth. And then ultimately, I'm going to roll with the last stylebender to win that fifth, retain his belt, and just prove to be the overall kryptonite to the Reaper. And I don't say that lightly because I truly don't believe that a lot of men in this 185 division can beat Robert Whittaker. In fact, I don't know if anyone else can beat Robert Whittaker besides Adesanya, but I just think that Adesanya is his kryptonite, and ultimately we'll find a way to get this one done. A 3-2, 48-47 unanimous decision for Adesanya. So, any last thoughts on this meat event? This one's, man, I can't even put into words how hype I am for this one.
Yeah, super high. This card is stacked, and yeah, you're right. Israel Adesanya could be Robert Whittaker's Usman to Colby. This is gonna be a crazy brawl. Very curious to see. But yeah, boys, throw in the comments. Are you Robin with the Reaper or the last style bender?